Good evening, everyone. Can y'all hear? Can you hear me? I don't think I'm on, but I don't know.
Test, test, test. Test, 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 test.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 5th, 2018 meeting of Mayor and Council. I will call this meeting to order. First order of business is our invocation, which will be given by Council Member Shirley Marchman, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Gracious Father, we come to say thank you. We thank you for that we're in the land of the living. We thank you for this time that we have, that we will take care of city business and won't be selective, that it will be inclusive for everyone. We thank you for being in a city where we can do these things, and we ask that you would send your special blessings upon this meeting, and whatever we do, you'll get the honor, the praise, and the glory. This I pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me out there? Is that loud enough? Okay. Okay, our first order of business is ceremonial presentations. It is always my pleasure to recognize those staff members that we have that have served years of service, and I'm going to ask that those employees come forward, and then I will meet you down in front. The first one is James Benedict. Jim has several titles. He is over our community service department and does a fine job there, and he's also Santa Claus at Christmas. I'm not making that up, he really is. So I'll be down just a minute. And also, we want to recognize, I want to ask Chris Pike to come up because he don't know I'm doing this, but Chris, I want to ask you to come up in just a few minutes too. So. Chris does so many things for the city. I'm very proud of it. We're blessed to have Chris in our presence in this city. And I went to a presentation or award ceremony in the classic city of Athens, Georgia, not too long ago. And had the pleasure of receiving an award really that I had very little to do with, quite frankly. And this man to my right had everything to do with that from the city of Bell Record standpoint. And what it was is called the Award for the Future Award. And it was actually awarded to Carrollton, Carroll County, and Billerica. And we left that day, and those of you that know me know I'm very competitive. We left without our trophy that day. And I looked at Chris, I said, we're going to get one of those trophies if we have to make it. I want that trophy in Billerica because we helped do it. This man right here helped make that happen. Chris, I'm gonna kind of let you tell us what the award is, and then I'm going to get a photo with you, because I'm proud of you and what you do for this city and what you are for us.
I appreciate that. Well, Georgia Trend Magazine and University of Georgia, they recognize 4 communities annually that are doing things that make a better quality of life for their citizens, and it's basically 4 cities to look out for in the future that are doing some trend-setting things. And so we were specifically receiving the award for Bill Ricker for our work with the master plan for downtown something. And since that program was introduced about 2 years now at this point, so Georgia Trend noticed some of the things that we were doing. We were nominated by the Carl Vinson Institute as awarded that this year. So very excited about that.
Chris set the award up today, and I want to show y'all something. I don't know if Chris put these in here or they came with it.
They came with the gloves.
I think he's probably as proud of the award as I am.
They came with the gloves.
So you don't get fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
Just before you
So I'll let
put it
you
on
wipe the fingerprints off if you don't mind. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank
you. Okay, the next thing, I think this next one is an oath of office for a good friend of mine. Among the committees that we have in the city of Billerica, and let me just say a little thing about our committees. We have committees that help us from a public standpoint with a lot of our operations here in the city, and not the least of which is the Recreation Advisory Commission. And since I became mayor, one of my goals has been to energize that committee. And we started with that, and the first person that I've had the honor to swear in is no stranger to recreation in Billerica. He was on my sports council for many years. He was on the advisory commission for years in the recreation department. His children came up in our program, and they were involved as coaches, team moms, team dads, just about everything you could do on the ball fields, they were there. And Alan Martinez, if you would come up, it is my honor to swear you in as our newest member of the Recreation Advisory Commission. You will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I'll just read the whole thing and then you say I do. I, Alan Martinez, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties as an appointed board member of the Recreation Advisory Commission. I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due to this state or any public subdivision or authority thereof. I am not the holder of any office or trust under the government of the United States, any other state, or any foreign state, which I might, by the laws of the state of Georgia, and prohibited from holding. I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia. I will perform the duties of my office in the best interest of the city of Billerica, to the best of my ability, without fear, favor, affection, reward, or expectation thereof.
Jeff, don't you want me to stand? Don't you want me to stand?
Alan, would you like to get a picture of your family?
Best idea.
I think he does that on purpose, actually. Okay.
Athens, huh?
Okay, council members, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do I hear any amendments to the printed agenda?
Yes, I'd like to amend the executive session to include real estate matters.
Okay.
I'd like to have, on the consent agenda, to take number 3 off for discussion, please.
Any others? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda then as amended.
So moved.
Have a motion and multiple seconds. All in favor? Okay. First part of our agenda is public comment. Anyone wishing to give public comment, please do so at this time. Please come to the podium. If you haven't signed in, please do so. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Kurt Kraft, 2406 Ridge Lake Drive. Just a couple of things. I saw the article in the paper about Butterball's Welcome Center, and a couple of things caught my eye, and I just want to submit some information to the city council, mayor, and the city manager. 2 comments were made, and they were legal in nature, where it said an agreement was never formalized before the process started moving forward. The ownership and management of the Welcome Center were never defined. And I had heard that rumor, but this just more or less confirmed it for me. And also, Councilwoman McPherson said we're now seeing the legal paperwork wasn't done the way it should have been done. I've had this information with a lot of my open records requests, so I want to share this with y'all, and I'm going to give you a copy. In the regular meeting of the DDA, they were discussing the update on the Welcome Center bids, and I underlined it in red what was discussed. And one of the big things that concerns me is the bid process to complete the project. And what ended up happening, a bid came in late, and that's all on their meeting notes, which is on the Villa Rica website. That's where I got it. And what really concerns me, it's a $300,000 bid. It came in late, and the bottom line was that their attorney said, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, there's a lot here, but when the directors could waive the lateness, the attorney said, but added that other bidders could challenge the DDA's decision. What I don't want to see, if there's nothing I've done in the past 12 years that dealt with contracts and things like that, and in my entire career, it's always been, when you do a bid system, if it comes in late, it's disqualified, period. They don't want to hear why, and the reason is because of suspicion that we got all these bids, this one came in late, the possibility that you're working with the one that came in late could drag the city into a lawsuit. So I'm just throwing a huge red flag up here, and I attached the actual bid that was accepted. Now, if it's a moot point, if the building's going to come down because of the road, so be it. But if it becomes an active project again, my recommendation is for it to go back out for bid, just to cover yourselves. So that's this one here, sir. And the old identity theft thing, I won't beat that to death, but I will say this. After discussing it with other law enforcement, I want to formally request that the City of Villa Rica Police Department check into a false swearing charge of the person who downloaded somebody else's information to my iPhone. I have 2 statements. One was from the Better Business Bureau, where they said that she acted in bad faith. The sergeant went out, got her statement. It does not match what was stated with the Better Business Bureau. Therefore, I'm wanting to formally request a false swearing charge to be investigated by the City of Villa Rica Police Department. That's all I got, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Larry Corrs, 115 Maple Valley Drive, Villa Rica, Georgia. I come tonight with 2 points to talk about. On tonight's agenda, our wonderful menu, it is dinner hour. We'll see the T-Splosh list, which is actually the road wish list, which is going to be delegated to the city manager. So I, as a concerned citizen, would like to know what roads are on the list, what's the criteria to make the list, and better yet, what citizen input did you ask for to help make up the list? The people that actually know your town the best are its citizens. We are here tonight, gathered here before you. We would like to ask to be involved and included in the decision-making process. The second issue that I have is signs. It's one of these contentious issues where a sign is like, well, and which includes billboards. You hate them until you need them. And then when you need it, or when you really do need one, you're looking for the information, you want a sign to help you along. But once your need is over, the sign then becomes an obstacle. However, we need to try to make the signs a part of our life so that we can have the information available to us. You want to regulate kind of everybody out of existence. However, the sign ordinance and the billboards, you are leasing space for a sign and you take money for it. I suggest that you, and I submit that you take money for all the rest of the signs that are going to be placed on the right of way, and you should go back and re-review your sign ordinance and go back and incorporate inclusion. That doesn't mean you take money for a sign and it stays up in perpetuity. It can stay up it can be dated, be stamped on the back, it'll have a decal for every sign that you're going to buy and place out on the right of way. It'll have a date expires, out it comes. If you're not a responsible person to take your signs down, they deserve to be in the trash. But please reconsider the sign ordinance and review it, and let's try to make this a workable issue for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
John Mount, 214 Rockmart Road. Where I live, 214 Rockmart Road is real close to 61 intersection and the three-way stop there. And I just want to say that I feel like the plan to put a new road through there to cut into 78 and do away with the Butterballs is to me a really bad plan. We've been planning for years for the North Loop where the trucks would go around, come on 101 down through that way, and now we want to make a shortcut for them and do away with what we just won an award for. The main part of the master plan is Butterballs, or run the trucks right beside it if it does stay there. And I think we just need to be patient, wait for the North Loop, keep those trucks out of downtown completely, because once they start cutting through there, they're going to continue. That's going to be a much shorter route than the 101 route and to exit 26. I don't understand why we're so concerned about the railroad. They really don't do anything to help the city out. They block our roads. They want to close all our crossings. I think and they're the one that created the problem by raising their bed over the years without consideration of what trucks getting caught on it. So I just think that's a really bad plan. We should stick with the Welcome Center, and we should stick with our plans that we've been building for years here, and not just start out new with new plans and trash everything we've done up to this point. So I would just like to say I am not for any kind of cut through there. I think it's just going to create more truck traffic downtown and cause more problems.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Wesley Plankner, 635 South Street, number 8, here in Villa Rica. In 1957, y'all experienced a explosion in this town. Y'all are in danger of another one happening if y'all don't shut Jane Edwards down, because she's already shows signs of that same thing happening to this town. I just want this town to care enough for their citizens to shut her business down. She does not care about this town. She does not care about herself or anything like that. And I don't think she needs to be in business when she's risking our citizens' lives as well as her own. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? That will close the public comments portion of the meeting and lead us to council updates. I have one council update that I would like to talk about, and I know Tom's going to talk about the T-Splosh, I think, in his portion, but Tom and I went to the meeting the other night down at the old courthouse about the Carroll County T-Splosh, and not going to steal his thunder, but I have asked, just so the council knows, I have asked Chairman Smith and his staff to come up at the July meeting and give us the breakdown of the T-Splosh as they would see it happening here in Carroll County. So with y'all's indulgence, that will be on the July the 10th council meeting. Lisa, if you would make a note of that. Other council updates?
I have two items. It says subjects of general interest and concern. This one is of general interest. I'd like to recognize Carroll County Sheriff Joe Merrill. Most of you probably don't know who he is because he left this earth in 1939. But 117 years ago in 1901, a story that is not well known in our county, he faced down a lynch mob several times that included a shootout. He was recognized not only by the U.S. President, but also by Mark Twain himself, and the story spread worldwide. This is a story I was not aware of, and if you're interested in knowing it, part 1 and part 2, I suggest you talk to Ken Denny, because he might know how to get you the link. I get it at home, so I see these things. And my second item is, Mayor, did you have some input with the county on the shoulder work that's getting done on Punkintown Road?
I did.
Okay, well, then my shout out is to you. Thank you. I know we've been squeaking about it, but thank you for making that added effort to, it looks like a piece of machinery from the county has enabled us to do something, and that's been dangerous over there. It's been dangerous with the drop-off, and I was so glad to see the guys out there. So thanks for helping with that.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that Chairman Smith openly, when I asked that the other night at the T-Splosh meeting, I said, can you help me with something? And I told him, and not only did he offer a piece of equipment, but Charles Pope, who is a blessing to this county, in addition to Chairman Smith and Gerald Pilgrim, and I'm leaving out folks, I know Ben Skipper and folks like that, but he not only loaned us a piece of equipment to do that, but also I think 2 dump trucks or 3 with drivers, and offered and provided equipment operators for the piece of equipment to do the shoulder work. So that's a good relationship that we have with both of our commissioner chairmans in Douglas and Carroll. Any other council updates? Okay. We to the consent agenda. And for those of you that may not be aware what a consent agenda item is, it is a single item that encompasses all things the city council would normally approve with little comment. Each of these items was discussed at the Thursday, May 31st, 2018 council work session, and it was the unanimous consensus of the governing body to place the following items on the consent agenda. And I'm going to read those into the record. Item number 1, contractor recommendation, and that's for the Gold Dust gutter replacement. Item number 2, city partnership with the Community Foundation of West Georgia to assist with donations for the city's trail system. We have removed, at the request of Councilmember Best, item number 3. Item number 4, Main Street Advisory Board appointment, and that's, I don't have the person's name on there. Is this a
Carolyn Cox.
Carolyn Cox? Okay. Item number 5, Main Street Service Delivery Area Map Amendment. Item number 6, resolution amending, should that be amending Downtown Development Authority boundary? Item number 7, Thomas Dorsey Festival Community Development Grant. Item number 8, Redevelopment Powers Law Resolution. Item number 9, long-term water quality monitoring. Item number 10, purchase remote control sewer inspection camera for distribution and collections department. Item number 11, water system improvements at Stone Street / Highway 78 / Norfolk Southern. Item number 12, building inspector vehicle. Item number 13, proposal by Ralph Tillis to develop water sewer tap fees and update the financial model from 10 to 40 years. And item number 14, a cloud-based GIS services with Ecological Planning Group. Okay.
When you want to talk about number 3?
Well, we removed it from, I guess we can add that to, we didn't amend the agenda.
Yeah, that should have been amended.
No, it was off consent agenda, it's not amended. All I'm asking is when you want to talk about it, now or later?
We can talk about it, so we need a motion second on the consent agenda first. Let's do that.
Make a motion to accept,
I'll second.
consent agenda.
Did you get that? Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. All right, now we will amend the agenda. Under governing body, what we'll do is, if it's okay with the rest, we will add item number 3 from the consent agenda as item number 5 on tab A. Is that? Okay. All right. Tab A, governing body, approval of minutes. Council, you have received the minutes from the May 1st, 2018 meeting. Are there any changes to the meeting agenda, the minutes as presented? Not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Was that a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? It is approved. Item number 2, intergovernmental agreement with Douglas County for the installation of a warning signal at Connors Road, Railroad. Tom, are you going to handle this? Let me give you a little bit of background first. This came up Thursday. We have, surely everybody knows that we've been working with, and I'll use that term loosely, working with Norfolk Southern and the train issue in downtown Villa Rica. And the best thing that has come out of those negotiations, discussions, whatever we want to call them, knockdown dragouts, is that when they block the roads, Connors Road and Cleghorn Street specifically, they will break the train loose, uncouple the train at Cleghorn Street, and that left Connors Road is an issue for the folks that live on that side. So we have, for I guess since before Councilman McDougal was a council person, this started back when Mike Williamson was a council person in that ward. So this will allow us to put a warning signal near the, I guess close to the Waffle House right there at the intersection of Mirror Lake Boulevard and Connors Road, which will, people won't have to drive all the way down to the railroad to find out the train's blocking the road right there. So that's sort of the concession that's been reached unofficially with Norfolk Southern. So with that, Mr. Barber?
So we have an IGA now for your consideration. The estimated cost of just the signal itself is almost $54,000. Douglas County will be overseeing the installation from the side of the government, although Norfolk Southern will be involved in the oversight of the contractor as well.
And what is your request, sir?
Our recommendation is that we authorize execution by the mayor.
Discussion?
Yes, way back when the city manager was talking about the people asking for this to take place, I think I remember it being on the Douglas County SPLOST list.
Right.
And we voted on that being on Douglas County SPLOST to say yes to it. So I guess what I'm saying is, I was told the other day this was not on the Douglas County SPLOST list anymore. And I'm guessing, what do we need to do to fix it?
Well, it's on the agenda item that it comes out of the Douglas County SPLOST.
It used to be an itemized item under SPLOST, I think 2 budget years ago. When we did the SPLOST update, we used more generic buckets. So we have streets buckets, which I think is what he pulled it out of for this.
Okay, just make
So it does come out of the Douglas County SPLOST.
the clarity of it is what I was referring to make sure everything is in where it's supposed to be in case somebody 10 years from now comes back and yells and screams. Thank you, ma'am.
I'll make a motion. I move we authorize the mayor to execute an IGA with Douglas County to install a running signal on Carter Road just west of the Mirror Lake Boulevard intersection.
It's south, isn't it?
It's not south.
Okay.
South heads for the bridge.
Second.
It needs to be.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Discussion? If not, all in favor? It is unanimous. Do we have any kind of time frame on this, Tom?
Slow.
Why do I know the answer to that? Okay.
I'll talk to Mark now that we've approved it. See if I can get a timeline.
Okay. Item number 3, Carroll County T-SPLOST project list.
All right, when the county puts the T-SPLOST on the referendum in November, the counties and the cities involved are authorized to educate the public about the issue, but to not advocate. In addition, we are allowed to present a project list both to the county and then later I think in the preparation of the referendum, which will be done by the county. And my preference is to provide us with reasonable flexibility, because the revenue is going to come in over a 5-year period starting next year if it's approved. So what I've presented is a somewhat generic list of items, either that include simple functions like sidewalks and bridge maintenance, which we don't have specific plans for, or somewhat more specific things, for instance, intersection improvements at places that we've already discussed. So that's what's in there now. But if you want to change this and add to it or change the wording, I'm open to any of that. But I need a list back in order to give something approved to the county.
And we do have deadlines that we have to meet here, because this has to go back to the county. Do you have that list?
July 10 is when they're approving their part of it, and they want our part to be done before they take action. And this, since we meet on July 10 also, we both had July 3rd meetings typically and pushed them back a week. We need to do that now, or else we'd have to have a special call meeting to get it done before the 10th of July.
And just for the public's information, this T-Splost, as it relates to the city of Billerica, we anticipate it will bring in how much money?
$100,000 a month for 5 years.
$100,000 a month for 5 years. And I just want to go on the record as saying something as mayor, and realizing that I don't vote on this, but that's going to have an impact on our budget in a positive way. The money that we have normally had to spend out of our general fund revenues to offset the cost of LMIG grants that we get through the state, this will replace that. And so I would like for us to consider rolling the cost of government, reducing that budget amount in our budget for this coming year, or whenever this is approved for that year that's affected. Because if we just, one of the things that I think we're all a little weary of in government now is that when government starts to grow, it just continues to grow exponentially, and I don't like that. If we're going to get this T-Splost passed, and it's going to result in savings in other areas of the city budget, then I want that to be reflected. And before we start going up on sewer rates and water rates and garbage rates and everything else to the citizens, I think we need to tighten our belt and just say, the T-Splost passed, so we're going to offset that cost. That's my thoughts on that.
So what this is the county commissioners will be putting on the, on the ballot, something for the citizens and all of us, because we're all citizens too, to vote on. If we want to add a penny tax, that would be a transportation tax, T-Splost, transportation. So people will vote on if they want it or not. But prior to that, they need from us some sort of, if it were to pass, they want a list from us of what we would do. Your recommendation is that the list be not too specific, because of the fact that if you say you want to do this road and you realize the money's not there and you really needed to do this road, to keep it a little bit more vague and not have a specific list maybe of roads, bridges, that sort of thing, sidewalks. Is that correct?
It's on the screen.
I mean, take the North Bypass. I've got it in here, but what if the North Bypass doesn't begin until after 5 years? So, I mean, I sat and mulled over that. I think we could put that in the list, and if GDOT doesn't build it, I'm not sure we can be held accountable for not spending money on it. So, anyway, I don't know how you resolve all that exactly.
In the new draft of that agreement that was handed out tonight, I think the county has attached a list for us, the same list for every city, because it's the county's list. That's also a very generic list also that we could add to if we wanted to, but
At least at this point, I haven't heard any objections to intersection improvements at Punkintown 61 and Industrial Rockmart. So those seem like pretty safe bets.
Y'all can read on the screen, for those of you, you see that whole section where it says staff recommendation, that's the list that Tom is proposing that we make as part of our intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County. So. Other questions or comments by council? And just to, one public comment that was made, I will respond to that. We all know, we all live here, we know where the traffic issues are, we know where transportation issues are, sidewalks are needed, so forth and so on. Please, we want your input. Send the emails to me or send them to Tom or whoever. You have my email address, and everybody knows my Facebook page, I think. But, send those suggestions. Don't assume that we know what those are. And we try to get around, and the staff does a really good job of going around. I had a question this week at the persons in the audience, I won't embarrass them, but a question was asked about North Avenue. And North Avenue is in dire need of repair. It's just needed to be at top surface coated for many, many years now. The problem is that road, like a lot of our other roads, the sewer line runs down the middle of the road. Well, that sewer line, I've seen what it looks like. It's just terracotta, breaking, falling apart. A lot of it's running through clay instead of running through pipe. So it doesn't make any sense to replace, to fix the road and then come back a couple of years later and fix the sewer. So that's part of the overall picture that Tom's been talking to us about for months now, that we need to seriously address our infrastructure, which is below ground, you can't see it, before we worry about fixing the road there. So that's not the only road that's that way, but that is one road that's that way.
Got a question here. I was handing this package. I've gone through it. I don't see the city of Villa Rica listed.
Me either.
What happened to Villa Rica?
I don't know why it's not in the copy you have, but,
Would have been, but we're not here.
no, I think the city of Whitesburg should be the next to last.
Boy, that's simple. So we're missing Villa Rica here.
If you look, if there's any of them in there, every one of them is the same. It just has City of the Villa Rica up at the top.
Okay, so it'll say exactly.
It's got the county and every city being exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can add to that. I mean, that's their generic version of it, but what they're asking, if we have anything specific to add, like Tom has here in the staff recommendation, I think you would blend the staff recommendation with this list, and then we should be good to go.
Yeah, one observation I would make for those of you that didn't get to go to the public meeting last week, the way that the county is presenting their position is that they recognize that they're underfunding road resurfacing, and at the same time, they're underfunding public safety. Even though they're spending a lot of money on road resurfacing and a lot of money on public safety, it's just not enough. And so the way that they're presenting the T-SPLOST is to generate revenue that can supplement and even replace some of what they're spending out of the general fund for roads, so that they can take that same money and hire more folks on the public safety side. In our case, after listening and talking to y'all for the last 10 or 11 months, I think that our get out of this is congestion relief. And it looks to me like more of what we want to do revolves around congested intersections specifically. And then the component that we have to contribute to things like the bypass, where we have to do really significant utility relocation or even new roads and new water and sewer. So it looks like what we're trying to accomplish with this is a little different, because it looks to me like the place where most people are chafing is over getting through 3 or 4 specific intersections in town. And I think if that's what we put forward, that's more where the felt need is in the community.
Other comments? Okay, you have before you a recommendation from our city manager. Would someone like to make that motion?
I move that we authorize the city manager to submit the proposed project list for the Carroll County T-SPLOST.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous. And y'all tune in, and like I said, our commission chairman will be here next month with the folks, and they can give you more in-depth information, and will no doubt touch on the thing that Tom just talked about public safety, is their component. Okay. Item number 5, which is removed from the consent agenda.
And I did that for one specific reason.
We got item 4 yet. We haven't.
I thought that was part of what we just did.
We did the list, but we haven't done the agreement.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry.
the IGAs are separate.
Okay, my apologies. Item number 4?
Elisa handed out a revised IGA that was distributed at 4 o'clock today in Carrollton. And the county has asked us to approve that with the project list before July the 10th. So I'd like for council to consider approving that so that we can go ahead and give that to the county.
I would say that the only addition that was made in that 4 o'clock edition of the document y'all had before was to add in a provision regarding mediation and arbitration if there was any disputes that ever arose between the county and any of the cities.
About the percentage.
I've reviewed that, looked at it, and we needed to have that in there.
And that would be if we disputed what our percentage of the take was, basically.
Well, you know, in the course of it, you can have a dispute if the county's auditor says City X is, you know, not using their money the right way. There has to be a mechanism to resolve that type of dispute. It's not so much a dispute about the percentage of the money, because that's set forth in the agreement itself. It could be a dispute as to whether or not you're getting your full share as you're supposed to. And if that was a dispute, then yes, it would go into mediation first and then arbitration rather than a city having to sue the county or vice versa.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to execute the IGA with Carroll County for the 2018 T-SPLOST.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous. Now, item number 5.
This was a request to apply and accept the Georgia Department of Transportation Alternative Program, the TAP, funding for trail system implementation. I don't have a problem with applying for it. I do have a problem with applying and accepting before we ever see what they're going to send to us. So all I would ask is that we take out the word accept, and I'll make the motion to do this, to apply for that transportation program, but I'd like to see it come back to us in its form from whoever's going to send it to us, and before we accept it.
If you can give me a little bit more clarification, I'm sorry, I don't know that, you want to see the application in its final form before it moves forward? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Now, I want to see what they're going to send back to us, what their expectations are for us in language that we can understand and that we don't either think we can do or we can't do, and we can. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of email or text, something that they will send to us to say, this is the way you apply.
I wasn't clear what you were asking for initially, or if that was your question. I could have, I provided a little background information on there, but GDOT also has a standard contract, if you will. I don't know if you want to see that. And that's typically when the federal dollars come down, what their expectation is of all the federal provisions. I'm not.
So a generic?
I think it's fairly standard. This is an extension, just so that you guys understand, of the T program that we just finished. So it would be a similar requirement in terms of what the federal standards are. You would still have to make sure, as an example, that you're meeting the DBE requirement. That's a federal requirement. Davis-Bacon, those are federal requirements that come down.
I'm sorry, just for the sake of even some of us up here in the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it would be just fine if you told what some of those things were.
The federal government, anytime you're receiving any federal dollars, there's the Davis-Bacon Act. There are wage requirements that have to be paid as it relates to any federal dollars that move forward. There's disadvantaged business set-asides. These are, as I previously mentioned, very similar, if not exactly the same, as to the contract that you executed with GDOT about 2 years ago for our Trailhead project. So it's fairly standard. with regard, but I'm happy to bring that back to the next meeting.
Okay, so
There's
some
any
things are very clear. It's $1 million, if we were to be awarded a grant, it would be worth $1 million.
$1 million minimum is
$1 million minimum. We have to have a 20% match, so that's part is clear. Verlin, is your concern of what the strings attached might be? What else they might say, you have to do this, you have to do this?
Exactly.
I see that point. So can
Who
we do?
decides how much you're going to apply for?
Well, we're making that request to GDOT because what we're obligated for is the 20% match. So if we're making the request for $1 million, then $200,000 we're committing ourselves to making available for the match. So my recommendation initially was $1 million or $1.2 million. That will put us providing a 20% match of $200,000 or $240,000.
So can we apply and yet not commit to accepting it until we see the parameters?
Wouldn't be smart.
Well, I'm just
It's not like I wouldn't even make the application
Okay.
if you know you're not willing to commit to the match. And again,
Somebody
you
just
committed
needs
to
to
a
say
match
that
very.
just like that. I mean,
Yes.
that's all I needed to hear. Okay.
Well, what happens with most state grants, and Vicki will say this too, is when you turn the grant down, or you fall through it cracks, or you don't fulfill the obligations, then you sort of get, I don't want to use the word blacklisted, but your
do.
chances of getting a grant in the future diminish greatly.
They want to see that you have, when you're requesting the dollars, that you have the capacity to execute. And once you kind of establish a reputation, then they'll know to look for you and that you're very serious about any type of transportation funding and implementing transportation projects in general. So,
And we were told this can be a royal pain in the neck, but it's your pain in the neck. Is that right? With the lots of reports and that sort of thing. And are you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with it. I just completed the same process as part of your Trailhead project, so it's
Okay.
par for the course.
Alrighty. So what do you need?
Coach?
All right, I'll make a motion, we approve it. Let me get it on where I can read it. Approve the request to apply and accept Georgia Department of Transportation Arterial Program TALP funding for trail system implementation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, ma'am. Tab B, Finance. Sarah?
Still don't like it.
Good evening.
Evening.
All right, this is your April financial update. This is the full version. We did the short version on Thursday. This is our cash balances as of April 2018 compared to April 2017. You can see our total cash in the bank with all of our bank accounts. This time last year was $7.2 million, and now it's just over $9 million. Those top three accounts, General Fund, Water Sewer Fund, and Sanitation Solid Waste Fund, those are actually part of our pooled cash bank account, which is our main operating account that we cut checks out of. The system tracks how much is due to each fund. So general fund grew from 6.1 to almost 3 million between the 2 years, and the water sewer fund was actually negative 619,000 in 2017, and now is at 1.3 million. So just a reminder, at the end of 17, we did do a transfer from SPLOST to help with the debt payment. So that's part of the reason there. But we also have increased revenues through the rate increase, but also we haven't been spending money on capital. We've used SPLOST money and other things, so we're seeing some cash savings there.
Stop. You know I always stop you at this point. there are a lot of indicators in the city. One of the things that we are very aware of is that we have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And I just want to point this out. I did Thursday and I do every month. But this time last year, we were $619,569 in the red in the water sewer fund. This year, same period, we're $1.3 million in the black. 1 year. Thank you to everybody. Thank you. And thank you to this council and everybody that had something to do. And thank you to staff for putting this together. But the other thing is, and this is asking me all the time, how much money do we have in cash reserve? That's important because that's a fail-safe. That's what we have if things get bad, if something happens, a tornado goes through and we have a natural disaster. We have increased the size of our cash reserve from $7.2 million to $9 million. Thank you.
So
Please proceed.
that part in the red, the rate increase has helped a lot, but you said that still is supplemented to a degree.
It was at the end of 17. 644,000 was transferred to the water sewer fund from
Okay.
SPLOST to
Okay.
help with debt.
Right.
Next, sanitation solid waste. We're still negative there. That's actually getting worse, but it would be worse. It would be even worse if we hadn't done the rate increase. So still negative there, but the hope is to improve that as well. The next three are our SPLOST accounts, and these are separate bank accounts. They are not part of the pooled cash. So our 08 SPLOST at the end of this past month, April, we had almost $600,000 still in there. But with the approved SPLOST list that we did last month, we hope to spend that in 2018. The 2015 Carroll SPLOST, we have $145,000 in the bank, and in our 2016 Douglas SPLOST, our new SPLOST, we didn't have anything last year, but we have $358,000 in the bank as of April.
Would you elaborate a little bit more on the sanitation solid waste? It went from negative to more negative. And what was that?
So we have negative $303,000 last year to negative $434,000. Part of it is we are still seeing loss in that fund, significant loss, because what we're charging for our solid waste is not enough to cover our cost even. So that fund is still losing money on that aspect. And we did make some solid waste purchases for the new dump trucks. So we did spend
Okay,
capital money there.
it's the trucks probably that ran it out.
Yeah, they were about $77,000 each.
And our tipping fees went up too with
Tipping
Douglas
fees have
County.
gone up. We moved some of the payroll. We reallocated the people that are actually doing the work to the right fund. So that,
How much did our tipping fees, what percent was that?
I think it was 50%, 100%.
It's almost double.
Almost 100% increase that we're paying Douglas County for our tipping fees. When we carry the stuff to the landfill, we have to pay that. So, we being the city.
Next slide. This is a more positive slide here. We have the growth in the city from 2017 to 2018. We've had significant increase in building permits. On the residential side, we've gone from 16 to 86 in 4 months, in the first 4 months of each year. So that's an increase of 70 building permits. And the water taps and sewer taps coincide with that. This is just new construction, so commercial, we haven't seen any yet in 2018. At this time last year, we had 3 for $4,000. Any questions on that slide? All right, this is our water and sewer business activity. Again, this is the first 4 months of the year. At the end of this period in 2017, we had already lost almost $600,000, and we've cut that in half. Now, in 2018, the first 4 months of the year, we've lost $293,000. So, still not wonderful, but we're getting there. Again, the big part of this is the rate increase, and we've had some savings in our water, and I'll talk about that in a second. So again, over a 50% improvement over last year. Any questions on those specific numbers? Okay. Next slide, sanitation and solid waste. So this actually looked better than last month. While we're still showing a loss, it's about the same as we were last year, which is wonderful considering we added 3 people to this fund in 2018, and our tipping fees went up almost double. So even though it's still a loss, we're holding steady, which is good. Any questions?
I think the only thing I want to know is when we start to get a little bit more detail on the budget for the year, are we planning to address this loss in that department and come up with some other ideas? We've decided it's a good idea to pick up a lot of things so that they don't get dumped all, so we don't have illegal dumping all over. But it costs a lot to do that, so are we going to see some ideas?
Well, what we had talked about.
You don't have to tell me what they are yet. I
No,
just want to
well,
know we're going to
Yeah,
address it.
Well, I mean, what we had talked about in the fall was doing our rate increases spread over 3 years. So we did 1/3 of it of the sanitation increase. I think that instead of council moving ahead with 2 more years of that increase, that we're going to cut back on the service.
And I was
Even though I
thinking
don't like
along those
the
lines.
consequence of that from an illegal dumping standpoint, I think if we beef up code enforcement, which you guys have already supported, that's where we're headed, and we're going to tackle the illegal dumping in a different way and try to make the cost of it more specific to the person generating the problem.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact that if we were going to keep going up on that fee, because there's people who never use it. And obviously it helps to spread it though, because it helps everybody when there's not mattresses thrown off on the side of the road and that sort of thing. That's good for all of us. We all benefit from that. I just didn't know if there was a way to be more efficient. You know, we've talked about it, and I'm just hoping we're looking for solutions so that we're not in the red.
Well, one of the solutions, and I hope y'all are still looking at, is the app that would make it more friendly, because what happens now is the trucks drive up and down every single road in the city every day, even if there's nothing on the street. And there are apps out there that a lot of cities are using now where you just open up the app, and if you've got a pickup at your house, then you put it on there, that information is transferred back to the city manager, who then transfers it to the correct department so it can be picked up. That's a much more efficient system than driving up and down every single street in the city trying to find stuff. So, we're still looking at that,
If
correct?
we can't do the app, because it sounded like that was maybe in the future, maybe we should consider going back to some sort of call-in, and you pay a certain fee for a certain amount or something like that. I just want to see us not be in the red and losing money all the time in that. Okay, thanks.
Next slide. All right. This may be the last time I bring this to you unless you want to see it again. But this is just an update on our qualified senior discount customers. So before we had 670 customers that qualified. As of last week, we had received 301 applications, and 259 of those qualified for the low-income senior discount, which is 39% of that original number. We still have 22 disqualified applicants due to income being too high, and 20 that still haven't completed their application.
And we have reached out to those and told them that they need to come fill out an application, and they still haven't filled out the application.
And some of it may be because they know their income's still too high at this point. I know we had one person that had filled out the application, but they knew they were changing jobs, and so they may have come back. All right, next slide. Wanted to give highlight to 2 recent cost savings. The first one is the gateway redo. So we originally budgeted $60,000 for that, but staff, Nick in particular, have done the work in the past week or 2, and I don't know that many details about it, but I know we only spent $5,100 on it. So huge savings on that compared to what we thought we were going to have to spend.
I guess so.
And next, we talked about this today in our budget meeting, water purchases. You can see at this time last year, in the first 4 months of 2017, we'd actually spent $197,000 on our water purchases with Carroll County Water Authority. And so far in 2018, we've only spent $78,000. So kudos to Pete and all the staff that have done the work at the water plant. He didn't want me to put his face up on this slide. I thought we should have. All right. And lastly is our self-funded insurance. So we went self-funded back in October. Basically, before that we would send a large check to United Healthcare every month, and whether we actually spent that money at the doctor's offices or at our pharmacies, they got to keep that money in their pocket. Now, that's the orange box. You can see what the checks we actually wrote out. The middle box is our self-funded. So now I put money in a bank account from each payroll, And every week we get drafted based on actual claims. So only when people are going to the doctors or getting prescriptions do we actually pay. We also pay some monthly administrative fees to go with that. But you can see our cash outlay difference is $224,000 in savings. So good things happening. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Tab C, Community Development.
Evening, y'all. We've got 4 items total tonight. The first item is a final plat, tab FP-01-18 for Twin Oaks Unit 2A. This final plat is only for 12 lots and about 500 linear feet of street. It's a continuation of Phase 1. The construction house building in Phase 1 is getting close to the end, and they ended up adding this section on because all the sewer goes in the same place, all the drainage goes in the same area. Unit 2 of Twin Oaks is all the streets are in, infrastructure's in, but it's not serviceable yet. So I went ahead and asked them to submit this final plat for these next 12 lots. All inspections have been performed. I have a maintenance bond posted already. All the due diligence from the developer has been done, and we ask for mayor and council approval. And the developer's representative is here for questions.
Bobby, where's this located?
Twin Oaks Unit 1 is over off South Carroll, behind that area over there, Phase 1. It's just a continuation. It's a cul-de-sac, around one cul-de-sac and just around the other for 12 lots is all it is.
I just want to make, some people probably don't know where that is, so I just want to make sure
There's
that's
a
right.
layout in this package.
Kind of
You bring
between
it back.
Walmart and Bojangles
Yes.
back in there.
Yeah, there's a
Final
layout
plat.
in your packet.
I know that, but the folks out there didn't.
They bring it up, they'll see it.
You know, all the house building, zoning, everything is exactly the same.
Okay.
So,
How long's the bond good for?
12 months.
And we're going to keep our eye on the bond, right?
Yes.
And not let it expire.
It's on my desk
if
right now.
something isn't taken care of.
And on my calendar as well.
It's the second.
That's important. I mean, I don't want that to get lost in discussion, is we finally have a process now when we have these developers come in and build, and we get these bonds that basically ensure that when they leave, that we've got the money to finish these subdivisions, rather than just have the binder down and not have a completed road. This allows us to, you know, those bonds have been here in the past, but they were not followed up on. What is your term because of for all the turnover we've had? What is that fancy term?
Institutional knowledge.
Loss of institutional knowledge. So that makes it sounds more politically correct, I guess. But what we're doing now is Bobby has it on his calendar. So when it comes time for him for that bond to elapse, rather than let it elapse, which means basically in the long run the taxpayers are going to have to pick up the bill for that if the city votes that way. That we've got a system in place now to do that.
And Mayor, the actual top coat I think is already on this section of 500 foot of street. So
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I don't think we have to have a public hearing
We don't?
on a plat approval. That is, it's not a zoning decision.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I was looking for the motion on the screen.
It's on there.
So then, I make the motion to approve the final plat application for JLB Development Incorporated for Twin Oaks Unit 2A.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to get those. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next, Bobby.
Mr. Mayor, we have rezoning application, tab RA-04-17 for 1030 3rd Street. David Wiley of Dallas, Georgia requested rezoning of the property at 1030 3rd Street, Villa Rica, Georgia, parcel number V03-010-0013, from currently zoned R20 to limited industrial. As you recall, this has been before council before. At the time Mr. Wiley filed for this application, he was planning on moving his construction business to this location, and he wanted to use the front portion of this 10.81 acres as equipment storage for his business. He was fortunate to work out a deal at his current location in Dallas, Georgia, to keep his business there. Once he changed that request, Mayor and Council asked for it to be sent back to the Planning Commission, which we've done that. His intent now is to just rezone the property from R20 to limited industrial for future development. You've got some layouts in your packet. Planning Commission voted to approve with 3 conditions. Number 1, the access to the site shall be provided from Sabre Parkway. No vehicular access shall be allowed from 3rd Street. Existing single-family use may continue utilizing 3rd Street for ingress and egress, but must vacate 3rd Street access once limited industrial activities / development begins. And then number 3 is all access easements shall be provided to the Community Development Department. And that will happen as part of the development process.
David, we will need to have a public comment on this.
Yes, that's correct.
Do we have any questions of staff? I believe the applicant is present.
Yes, sir, he is.
Are there any questions for the applicant? No questions for the applicant. Okay, this will open up the public comments portion. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this as a rezoning request, please come forward and do so at this time. State your name and record for the stated address for the record, and I guess we're limited on this. Anyone opposed or for? If not, we will close the public comments portion of that, and we'll revert back to the council for a decision. Waiting for a motion.
I'd like to, make a motion to approve the rezoning request at 1030 3rd Street with the 3 conditions.
Let me point out there was a letter of opposition included in our package.
Correct. We had gotten that before, too, in a statement.
Have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? If not, all in favor? It is unanimous. Item number 3.
Mr. Mayor, we have an appeal that has been filed to Mayor and Council on the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission at our May 8th meeting. Mr. Rex Camp, 209 Main Street, land lot 161 of the 6th District, Carroll County, Georgia, in the city of Villa Rica, filed an appeal of the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission regarding his certificate of appropriateness for awning replacement on his buildings downtown. According to the Unified Development Code of the City of Villa Rica, a certificate of appropriateness is a permit to allow the construction, demolition, or alteration of any property that is designated in a historic preservation district. The certificate is designed to help ensure the preservation of the historic character and architectural integrity of these buildings and sites. A little background. Some time ago, a storm destroyed the metal awnings on most of the storefront at 209 Main Street. At the building permit stage, it was determined that a certificate of appropriateness was needed due to the location inside the Historic Preservation District. Mr. Camp's intent is to replace the destroyed awnings with aluminum awnings with similar construction. According to the commercial design guidelines established by the Historic Preservation Commission, metal awnings should not be used when they are not historically significant. At the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, staff, once Mr. Camp applied for his COA or Certificate of Appropriateness, staff did an analysis on the case with the Commercial Design Guidelines and Unified Development Code in hand. Those are the only 2 tools we have. Staff recommended approval with conditions to the Historic Preservation Commission, and they approved those conditions unanimously. And Mr. Mayor, I'll read those if it's appropriate. Awnings should be attached to mortar joints instead of building masonry to avoid damage to the original structure. Metal awnings be replaced with canvas or fabric awnings with matte finish that coordinate with the rest of the district as prescribed by the Downtown Commercial Design Guidelines Handbook and Unified Development Code. And these particular sections are in the Commercial Design Guidelines, Chapter 6, Section B8. Avoid creating false historic appearances such as colonial, Old English, and Spanish or other themed designs such as mansard roofs, metal awnings, coach lanterns, small pane windows, plastic shutters, inoperable shutters, or shutters on windows where they never previously existed. And in that same design standard, Chapter 6, Section L, although metal is not a prevalent decorative element in Villa Rica, the possibility exists that property owners may want to rehab or restore a building using decorative metal elements. Metal should not be used when historically a building did not use metal elements such as a roof or as an awning. And in the other code book, our Unified Development Code, Chapter 5, Section 5.09C2, under awnings, fabric awnings are encouraged. Canvas with a matte finish is preferred. Awnings with a high gloss finish and illuminated plastic awnings are prohibited. We also got an opinion from the Department of Community Affairs at the Design Studio in Athens. They help us a lot with Chris's area downtown in Main Street with period design storefronts that fit the actual year the buildings were constructed. And they also agree with staff that the metal awnings are not appropriate based on downtown Villa Rica. And with that, that's our analysis. I mean, it's, the applicant is here.
Question, I'm looking at photos in the package. The one beside this building looks like it has metal awnings at the corner and wrapping around. Is that correct?
We have other buildings in the specified area that have metal awnings that obviously are not 50 years old. You know, they were obviously done in the past, and you know, I can't help those.
I'm going to preface my remarks. I said this Thursday, but I'm going to say it again. But I'm going to preface my remarks because I didn't do that Thursday. Staff is responding to what's written, period.
That's all we have.
Our Historic Preservation Commission is responding to what's written, period.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't want what I'm about to say to be misconstrued. But with that said, my point Thursday was, if you look at that building, to the left of these that blew away, an act of God blew them away. And we are telling that business owner now that the ones that are on his building to the left are metal are okay, but now since the wind blew the other ones away, that he has to replace those with canvas. I just want to point that out. I don't vote on this. Two more points I'm going to make, and then I'm going to open it up for anybody else that has comments up here. Our historic preservation guidelines were last updated in 2009.
Yes, sir, I believe that's correct.
So they are almost 10 years old, and they have not been updated. The other point, the last point I want to make is, I think by the state of Georgia, anything that's 25 years or older is considered historic. Is that correct? What is that number? Is it 50?
Yeah,
50 years?
I think it's more like 50, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That's all the comments I have. Questions for staff? Okay, I think it would.
I called if I had any questions. I looked over all the material.
Okay, the applicant is here, and I think it's appropriate for him to come forward at this time. Mr. Camp, if you would come forward, if you'll have questions. Mr. Camp, if you'd like to make a few comments, that would be appropriate, and then council may have questions.
I actually had not planned to say anything. Each one of you have already seen everything that I could say. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's a PowerPoint presentation I put together that showed what Villa Rica is, what it has. I'm not going to do anything that will be detrimental or worse than what's already here. certainly I'm going to do better than what was there. It'll be approximately in the same size. The word aluminum was used, and it is not aluminum. It is a steel metal awning of conventional construction. And I don't know what else I can tell you. I am having damage done to my building because of it, because it is missing. I honestly never knew how much the awning helped our building until we lost it. That awning that was there before goes back to it actually goes back to before 1962. So that's what, 50 what years? Now if you're talking about historic and 50 years of the lemon, we got it.
Is that,
Any question?
okay, do we have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture uncorked and the buildings beside it, and it says they have,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, a little closer. I'm looking at a photo of uncorked, and the buildings beside it, they have canvas awnings. Have you looked at those, and what's your objection to this canvas?
I don't want them. That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Canvas awnings. I do not want something that I have to maintain on a regular basis. I do not want to have something that I've got to replace. And if you get down to certificate of appropriatenesses, there was no certificate of appropriateness when they put their awnings up. I'm the only commercial business to that date that has ever had to go for a certificate of appropriateness for anything. Now there was a residential that had to, and for the life of me, I still don't know why. If we were, I did a little research on the certificates of appropriateness. Matter of fact, I thought you had made it up. But the cities that have the certificates of appropriateness are places like Savannah, who has a Victorian area that they try to maintain, and that's good. I mean, I won't argue it. We have not that. Nothing. We've got Spanish. In my presentation, I wish you'd bring it up. On my PowerPoint, there's absolutely nothing here that says that putting a metal awning is wrong. I mean, this is the original awning. That's what it originally looked like. And it's going to be about that same size. It's going to be a little different configured, but for the most part, that's what it's going to look like. It's going to be green. As I put in the PowerPoint, you can see it later on, but just flip through a couple of these slides and I'll go through them one at a time. Now this is after the storm. This is what it looks like now. This is an adjacent building with metal awnings, which is less than 50 yards from my building. Actually, it's probably, if you go from the closest point, it's probably 50 feet. This too, metal awnings, similar construction at the end of Temple Street, up here in Tom Large's buildings, offices on Main Street. We've got, now this is my favorite, this is James' building. Nothing has been done here, and actually I don't know why, actually, but I have my suspicions why. But construction will be better than this, I can guarantee you. All right. This right here, fine and dandy if that's what they want. If they want canvas on it, I'm not here to argue about it. Downtown, we've got people with no awnings at all. That's fine if that's what they want. Same thing, just keep flipping it on up, if you will. Here we got a terracotta awning. Now I'm making an argument because I'm irritated. I'm irritated for having to be here. All I want to do is protect my building with an awning. That's simple. And something similar to what I've got is what I need and want. And that's it.
Any other questions of the applicant? Is anybody here from the Historic Preservation Commission? I would love to hear from you, ma'am.
We have a couple people.
I'm Nancy Mims, Chairman of the Historical Preservation Commission. Mr. Camp, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I do know that you need to have something to protect your business. We all agree to that. We don't make the rules. The rules are there, and yes, they are old. I will tell you that every single one of the commissioners will be going to a training session on August 14th. So we will be taking a look at what the new guidelines will be. I know that it's coming to be summertime. I understand that. I think that we all do. And we really appreciate it a lot. We also know that the city right now is going through a lot of changes. It is transparent if all of you would come. We have historic meetings on the second Tuesday of the month. On next Monday, there's going to be an open meeting for the whole city to see what's going on. I don't see us as a separate entity. We are in juxtaposition with each other. The planning board, the city council, historic society, historic preservation, all of us have a point in doing this. And yes, we all want our city to be a great city, and I think that it's coming to be that. We also do have transparency, more than I understand has ever happened before. And yes, I've only been here since 1988. On the other hand, a couple of the commissioners are members of DIR. We understand historic. We understand history, and we want that. Now, according to code right now, the lumen is not there. And yes, many of us had a chance to go on a tour of many cities, and we did see different awning and different types. And to say that something should be grandfathered in, we also know that buildings had asbestos in 1920, and we can't grandfather them in. We also know that our water areas are coming into a point where we need to change the piping in there to keep that up to code and to make it healthy and safe for all of us. That's what we're looking for. And if you would just be a little more patient, and if you'd like to speak to me, I would be more than happy to talk to you and to see if we can resolve it later on, and as soon as possible.
Any questions? Okay. Council? David, do you have any comments on this before we?
This is not any legal implications to it. This is a discretionary decision on behalf of the city council as to whether or not to, it's an appeal. The historic commission has made their determination not to issue a certificate of appropriateness. Mr. Camps exercised his appeal to this board. You have the power to overturn the decision of the historic commission if you so choose.
I sympathize with you. I've looked through the material now several times. It is true we have areas downtown that aren't very appealing at this point. The difference is we're actually trying to address those issues now. We have not always followed our own rules and guidelines, and that's not good. We need to be consistent. It is true that certain things are grandfathered in, and if they burn down, often you can't build the same thing, especially in a historical area, or things are blown down by a hurricane or whatever. The grandfathering is lost once something is destroyed. You may have to put up something different if that's the requirements of that area. I think it's our goal to not have those pictures that look like what you showed, because I'm distressed by some of those areas, and I expect that with code enforcement we're going to be able to do some of that. At the same time, I believe we have to draw a line. At some point, we draw a line moving forward that we're going to follow certain guidelines, and we're going to be consistent doing that. And this is not easy, but I would make a motion to deny the appeal and support the unanimous decision of the Historic Preservation Committee.
I have a motion to deny the appeal. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and proper second. Discussion?
Yes, Ms. Mims made a statement a few minutes ago that she's willing to sit down with Mr. Camp and see if they could work out an agreement. And I'm thinking that if they can work that agreement out, we don't have to go through with all this. But now if If that's not the case, then we can go on with this vote.
I'm not aware that there is any type of a period before which they can apply again if there is some sort of changed application. This is not like a zoning decision where you can't reapply for 12 months.
The ever-present training.
Yep. The only point I'm making is that in a zoning decision, if you deny it, then you can't reapply for another 12 months. I'm not aware, and I'm looking at the historic people because they've spent more time with it than I have, but I think if there wants to be further discussion on moving forward, that there's nothing to prevent that from happening, whether you approve or deny the motion.
I think the one thing that we know won't be the agreement will be a metal awning based on the unanimous decision of the committee. So there might be something that can be worked out, but I don't see that as being.
Well, I'm thinking that the mayor brought up that 9 years is a long time to go by the original historical events that took place 9 years ago, that they wrote up all the specifications they wanted to do. And I've seen several, on these pictures, I've seen several times where that's not the case. So, we need to be able to sit down and give some type of firm commitment to the Historical Society to be able to say, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and go on from there. But we've been, I'm going to use the term wishy-washy with some of the people downtown, allowing them to do a lot of things that really have not been able, that they should not have been able to do. So that's the only reason I'm saying I'd rather see some communication back and forth, but if that's not the case, then that's not the case.
Well, as far as something for an update, Bobby did mention that they were in communication with the community affairs,
Department
of Community Affairs, DCA, and actually got guidance from them on it. And I would consider that probably the most up-to-date information we can get, is dealing with them on what's historically accurate, what's not historically accurate, and what's recommended. That's the only thing I was just going to reference.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm bothered by the fact that an act of Mother Nature caused this to come before us, and you can't go back to where you had it. That does bother me. That's my input.
Call the question. All in favor of denying? All opposed?
You get your chance, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I really did not anticipate Councilman McDougal not being here tonight. Let me give you my overview of this situation. I kind of played my cards a little bit earlier, but this is a difficult decision for this council, and I'm going to say that. And I've spoken to the folks here. We're part of this community, and we understand that business owners are what made this city what it is. With that said, I do not take lightly what our committees do. You folks volunteer your time, and you do a great job, and you go by the rules that you're given. You don't make this stuff up. And staff, same thing with y'all. I'm very aware. I was a staff person for 14 years, so I know how it feels when a council doesn't necessarily take your advice and goes in opposite direction with something. But with that said, I've weighed this out in my mind, and I prayed about it, and Mr. Cap and myself haven't always agreed on things, but I'm going to say in this situation that Mr. Cap has been a business owner here, I think, since the 1920s. He didn't ask for his canopy to be blown away, but I'm going to cast the vote to overturn the decision of the staff and of the Historic Preservation Commission.
That's not the motion, though. You have to, the motion is to deny, so you would be voting against the motion at this point, and then somebody's going to have to make another motion.
Okay. So that's the way I cast my vote. So then we have to make a second motion?
Yep. Somebody's got to make a motion to take some other action other than to deny it. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the appeal of the decision made by the Historic Preservation Certificate of Appropriateness at 2009 Main Street.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Restate that.
Instead of deny, it's approve. I'm reading the motion off the page. You're overturning the decision of the Historic Commission. So we can pull up,
Approving the appeal.
approving the appeal.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, discussion? Not, all in favor of the question? All opposed? I will cast my vote to, David, keep me straight here. Am I casting my vote to overturn the,
To approve the appeal, yes,
Okay.
to
That's my
overturn
vote.
the decision of the Historic Commission.
that is my vote. Did you get that? Okay, item number 4.
Mr. Mayor, we've made some revisions to our alcoholic beverage ordinance to include breweries, nano-breweries, and microbreweries. Ms. Leslie, if you want me to, I will quickly flip through the changes in the changes that we made.
It's up to you. I'm familiar with them now.
We introduced brewery, microbrewery, and nano-brewery definitions into the code. And just, since it's still early, a nano-brewery is a manufacturer or producer of malt beverages of wholesale purposes, premises limited to no more than 2,000 barrels per year. A microbrewery is the same, but the limit is no more than 15,000 barrels per year. And then brewery is Anheuser-Busch Brewery, you know. We instituted license fees for breweries, application fees for breweries. We established where the breweries, nano-breweries and microbreweries can be located in our zoning process here in Villa Rica. I also clarified back when Mayor and Council approved the change on our proximity restrictions on our alcoholic beverage license on how you measure how close you are from the license selling the alcohol to churches, schools, etc. I incorporated that in this as well. The council vote on that. And the other major area is breweries are eligible for license. In breweries must comply with all applicable city, state, and federal license requirements. Breweries must pay all applicable state, city, and county taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, that's pretty much it.
Okay, and what this, so for those of you that may not be aware, we have a person that has approached the city and wants to open up is the official term a microbrewery? Is that what it's?
The applicant's here.
Microbrewery, and you know, I'm not a drinker, but you know, I know the small cities that I've been to, those are the type of businesses that attract the folks to the downtown area, and this is a local person. He's been involved in the community for many years, as has his wife. She's a former business owner, was on the DDA here. So, any questions of council?
I think it is important to point out that you're not approving any specific establishment or brewery right now. What you're doing is creating the classification for somebody to come in and apply to operate that type of business, for anybody to come in and apply for that type of business.
David, since this is an ordinance change, there will be a public hearing.
No, this is to our alcoholic beverage code. It is not a zoning decision. So it does not require a public hearing, although you can have a public hearing anytime you choose to, if the council chooses to.
Well, if and when someone comes forward, that would be the time to do that then. We could question. Any questions of council?
I make a motion to approve the revision to the alcoholic beverage ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? 3-1.
Thanks, sir.
Started to say 4-1. Okay.
That was 4-1. He's not here.
I said 3-1. I started to say 4-1.
Oh, okay.
I'm used to saying 4-1. Okay, city manager's report, Mr. Barber.
I'd like to take some time tonight to talk about the Liberty Road closing that's coming up. Georgia DOT has announced a schedule of maintenance to be performed on the Douglas County bridges over I-20. And the one bridge that will most affect us will be Liberty Road. In addition to normal maintenance, which I would assume would include repainting, we are going to get to observe a process called bridge jacking. And what that entails is GDOT has established a new minimum clearance statewide, and for bridges that don't meet that clearance, they're going to be raised. And Liberty Road is going to be one of those. It's a process that takes 30 to 45 days and will be accomplished either this summer or next summer, so they're only going to do the work while school is out. When the work is being done, the ramps will be open. So only half your day is potentially going to be ruined. But if you, for instance, live in Mirror Lake and work in Atlanta, you will not be able to cross the bridge, which means you will not be able to access the interstate from the Liberty Road Bridge. So you'll have to either drive farther and go to 61 and get on, or drive to Post Road and get on. And then at night, if you live in the Liberty Road, Pool Road area, and you work in Atlanta, you can't cross the bridge. So you're going to have to drive to 61 and come back, which is not an easy trip. So that's 61 down to South Carroll, up to Berry, left on Daniel, right on Edge to get over to the truck stop. So that's coming.
How much is the jacking going to raise the bridge?
It will vary for each bridge depending on how what they need to get to the clearance point. And I'm assuming, and I haven't heard this, but I'm assuming that GDOT will also feather the transitions on each side of the bridge maybe 100 feet. So there'll be some road work adjacent to the bridge work.
The other things
That's pretty significant.
It is. And the other things that I took away from that is that this only includes the Douglas County, as far as City of Villa Rica is concerned, bridge right now, which is Liberty Road. There are plans to do the same thing in Carroll County, but those are in excess of 5 years out. So we won't have to worry, potentially, if you can believe GDOT, we won't have to worry about that for the next 5 years, at least in Carroll County. But it is going to be an inconvenience for those that use the Liberty Road Bridge. The positive that came out of that, as Tom said, and just to reemphasize that, those that live on the south side of Liberty Road can still access the ramp onto I-20 East without having to go all the Edge Road, Daniel Road, and all those. So that was significant to find out that the ramps will still remain open. That's a big plus. I asked the question, is probably somebody out there, if not more of you have this on their mind, has there been any coordination with Norfolk Southern as far as trains stopped on Cleghorn Street and Connors Road? And the answer to my question from GDOT was no. What are you talking about? Which concerned me greatly. So hopefully we'll get the two at the table and we can work out something, because my worst nightmare just got a little bit worse if trains are blocking Connors Road and Cleghorn Street, and we also have a bridge closed at Liberty Road, then the traffic in downtown is going to ramp up significantly. So for 30 to 45 days, it's not going to be pretty. No way around it.
When will we be told it's going to be this summer? Okay, we don't know. Okay.
they haven't even let the contract yet, so.
Is there any truth to the fact that they're doing all this to raise the bridge 3 inches?
That was about what we had
Yeah.
to deal with the Fairburn Bridge, but
And according to GDOT, when, 3 inches, that doesn't sound like raising a lot, but when you're a truck and, you don't clear it, they've had trucks that are already hitting bridges in other parts of the state, so this is something that's not just happening in Douglas County.
Will it have any effect to the closure of the port in Savannah, them double stacking trailers to go around the state?
I haven't heard that.
No, it doesn't, that portion of the bridge isn't gonna be, they're not messing with the portion that's on top of the railroad, just the I-20.
No, I'm talking about I-20 on trucks. Double stacking them there. I don't know, I'm just asking the question.
Okay, the second thing I'd like to talk about for a second is our responsibility going into this fall. So we as a city have the opportunity to educate the public on the 2 items that are going to be on the referendum. And I think that creates a unique challenge for us because the T-SPLOS is clearly a tax. Redevelopment powers, on the other hand, are not, but we're going to have to be really careful how we communicate so that people understand a concept that even most people that work in governments don't deal with. Because redevelopment powers is something that you only get approved one time in the history of your city. The tax allocation district that you can create as a result of that, you can do over and over and over again, but the actual authorization is a one-time in your life deal. So it's not something that most people are familiar with. So as we move ahead and you think about what we've got June through September now, we're already, really at the point where we need to be doing it now. We need to be communicating now, and we hadn't even gotten started. So we're going to have a real challenge for that, and because of the governor's race, we should have a significant turnout. So this is not going to be an easy piece to communicate on those 2 items. The only other thing that I wanted to mention tonight is we have reached out to both of the school systems in an effort to develop relationships with the folks that do facility planning. And one of the things that I was hoping to do was to come up with a way to communicate what our growth looks like and to understand better from their perspective what part of our growth matters to them and what part doesn't matter, and how much does each part that does matter affect them. What kind of status are their specific schools in terms of growth? Which schools have land opportunities where they can be expanded and which ones don't? So I had that first meeting with Carol about that, and the good news from that is I think we have the potential for really good working relationships with those people. The other thing that came out of that meeting is we met with the transportation person, because as we talk about this potential road situation in the downtown and what we do with the crossings and all that, it seemed to me that we had the potential for maybe fixing a truck problem and creating a bus problem. And sure enough, I think if I had not met with the guy and explained what we were talking about, I wouldn't have understood from his perspective exactly what part of the road system they utilize the most. So that was all very positive. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Punkintown Road is getting a little shoulder work. That hasn't turned out to be very easy, but the county's been great. So when you see any of the commissioners or the personnel involved in that, you should thank them. They're going above and beyond to help us with that. Sarah and I have also just finished meeting with department heads on the budget. So we finished that today, and I know you're overjoyed, but you get your first cut of the budget, I think, a week from tomorrow. So you have that to look forward to now, since you don't have handbooks and UDCs to read. The next meeting, you can start scanning the budget in all of its glory. And then two things that that are going on that we've talked about. You've approved a contract to rework the water plant. That work is going on. You've also approved two contracts for the lift stations, one for Brennan and one for Goforth Williams. And those guys are both at work. So both of those projects are underway, and I wish I could say that the end result of that's going to be painless, but of course what's going to come as a result of those are more contracts, one to renovate the plant, one to do maintenance on the lift station. So that's my report for tonight.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session. And David, you want to read our?
Yes, the motion needs to be to go into executive session for three separate purposes. One, which will be a meeting to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee. Second purpose, to go into executive session to discuss matters pursuant to the attorney-client privilege, to discuss pending or threatened litigation, and a third reason, to discuss the future acquisition or disposition of real estate.
Do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? We are in executive session. Y'all stick around. We'll be back.